Case. So we immediately made a 911 brochure in the Somali language and held some meetings, and I brought some of our communication center staff to talk about the appropriate use of the 911 system in the city of St. Paul. Next. As I said, training on how to use the 911 system. This was a serious issue that we had to address. Somali elders told us, plain and simple, and this is an issue that's affecting us right now, today, throughout the state of Minnesota. A lot of the Somali youth didn't want to go to school, okay? Especially in the city of St. Paul. I realize, having worked gangs and drugs and different things for a long time, that can lead to gang-related issues. Young people join gangs in because they're not going to school. What we didn't realize was this. Most of the Somali youth that came here to the United States, and the elders informed us of this, came, and let's say you're 17 or 18 years old. What I didn't realize is if you're 17 or 18, you're usually a senior in high school in the city of St. Paul or Minneapolis in our American public school system. But because of the lack of education where they have come from Somalia, their education or their reading level might have been at a 7th or 8th grade level. So what did that lead to? Lots of problems. Lots of problems that a lot of people didn't listen to. Lots of problems that we did not have an opportunity to tell our city government leaders, listen, this is a real concern. We've got to get the St. Paul public school system involved with this process real quick. You can't put a 17-year-old Somali man into school in a senior high school or at the senior level and expect him or her to succeed. And that's exactly what happened. A lot of Somali youth were dropping out of school. I'll talk about some of the proactive things we did later. Number 2 is gang reduction strategies. They go hand in hand. That's what has happened in St. Paul and Minneapolis. Those are the issues that we're dealing with. More so in Minneapolis than in St. Paul because we've done a better job of outreach work and we listen more closely, I think. We've got a better relationship right now with our Somali Elder Advisory Group. If you're a 10th or 11th grader and you're frustrated and you don't want to go to school, you don't go to school. You join a gang. I won't get into the different Somali gangs that there are there. There are many less in St. Paul than there are in Minneapolis, and our Somali parents have done an exceptional job in St. Paul, along with some of our nonprofit groups, in keeping some of that violent activity outside of the city of St. Paul. But we've had 2 very high-profile meetings and 2 very high-profile homicides in Minneapolis of 2 young Somali men, including one individual that was, going to get ready to graduate from Augsburg College. Very sad, right in front of the Brian Coyle Community Center, a gathering spot. Very sad. So you have to look at the systemic issues. I'm a real common sense person. Let's go back to right here. Those young men probably weren't in school. Why weren't they in school? Because we did not listen. We did not develop that partnership so that we can understand that, listen, if I'm 18 years old and I need to be in a special school where I'm getting 9th and 10th grade reading help, that's what we have to do. We have to build our self-esteem. Gang reduction, again, those are the strategies discussed. And I'll be real honest. Some of our Somali elder group just told us. He said, Chief Smith, my son says in the morning I get him up for school, to get ready for school, I'm not going to go to school today. And I said, okay, then you tell them to really go to school, right? No, they tell us that if we try to force them to go to school, they'll call 911. Again, an abuse of the 911 system. These are the issues we learned early on. And they'll tell the police that we're abusing them. Now, we had a lot of experience in this. Folks, we don't have to recreate the wheel. 20 years ago, we welcomed many thousands of Hmong refugees and immigrants to the city of St. Paul, largest number of Hmongs of any city in the country. We went through every one of these same things. Although the cultures are different, religious beliefs are different, clan structures and other things are the same. And that brings me to one important issue. And I don't know what it's like in Minneapolis because I haven't done the work there. I'm a realist in St. Paul. I realize that our Somali friends, there are different associations, and I've studied the culture of clans from Somalia. And sometimes those people don't always see eye to eye. I understand that. But there's one thing that we did in St. Paul that changed that. There's one thing. We sat down and listened and found some common ground. And it didn't matter what clan association you might have, whether you're an adult or you're a young person, these two issues, school with their youth, everybody wants their kids to go to school and be educated right here and get a good education. And number two, they don't want their children involved with gangs. That crossed all clan, any kind of beliefs that you might have. It didn't matter. Everybody agreed to that point. And that's where we were actually been able in St. Paul to bring some people from the table, such as from the east side and from Skyline Towers that may not have spoken to each other as much before, but at least they have one common bond. Domestic violence was another issue. I don't see too many Somali women in the crowd here, but one of the things that I learned, cultural, again, differences, we had to bring some of our female officers to address just the Somali women in different groups. And that's fine. That's fine. When we meet with our elder group, it's a very special occasion. I'm not saying to exclude women. We all have different cultural beliefs from our own cultures. I see we have a very diverse group here today. I'm very diverse myself. We all have different beliefs. Garrett and I spoke about, and we addressed a group of St. Thomas students, University of St. Thomas, where I'm completing my master's degree, and I gave some presentations to the students there in their master's international cohort. And one of the things that many of the students didn't realize, I have one friend there from Liberia, there's other friends there from Central America, is that now in Central America, or let's say in Mexico, you would think nothing of families walking down the street and everybody's arm in arm, hugging each other, holding each other, both men and women. But the one thing that I realized here is that, and that we discuss, very simple things that people forget unless you work together, is that I am not to shake the hand of a Somali female. That's disrespect. It's also something that's not accepted for her to do, to touch the hand of another man. But I didn't realize that. In fact, the first meeting we had at Skyline Towers, that's the first thing I did. And that's the first thing that Garrett told me not to do. In fact, I grabbed the woman's hand and I felt so guilty. I apologized over and over, and she said, no, you did not understand. So that's part of the learning experience. But I want to tell you this. Okay, now there's 800 to 900 police officers in Minneapolis. There's 600 police officers in St. Paul. Let's say that those officers are getting called to a Somali family's house, and they don't realize this. They don't realize you're not supposed to shake the hand or touch a female. They go into a mosque, and they don't know the respectful things that they have to do at a mosque. Those are things that we have started at St. Paul Police Department some years ago to train our officers in, and I believe other agencies, such as here in St. Cloud, that has a large Somali population, Minneapolis, they have to do a better job of doing that. We can go on to the next slide. We already talked about what we've learned from the Hmong community. We've gone through the same things. Children be involved with gang activity, children not wanting to go to school. Their gangs, it took a little longer to establish. In fact, if you watched last night on, I think it's cable channel 50, at least for Comcast, they had a program called Gangland. They talk about different gangs, and they had a long thing from St. Paul about Hmong gangs. Very different in their culture and why they're involved with gangs. I worked that. I worked for the state of Minnesota before I became a police officer. I worked with the federal government. And the Hmong community kind of banded together just because they were picked on in school. Very difficult, and that's some of the similar things we've seen, again, in the Somali community as well with some of the young folks. Next slide.